And another story about that is Peter and Janet and I came out of this cave. There's supposed to be an explosion. All this fiberglass is supposed to shoot in front of the camera. And so we run out of the cave and nothing happened. So we walk back into the cave. And Peter goes, the production manager goes, on we go, next scene. Peter says, oh, hold on, can I talk to the top? Because there's a big box up there where the producer is, they're watching the monitors. And Peter said, excuse me, he said, nothing happened when we came out of the cave. And the head of the production manager would say, doesn't matter, we'll lay it on later, on we go. But as actors, we'd just come out and done that. And then sort of thought, well, nothing's happened. We'll obviously be doing this again, won't we? No, we weren't going to do it again because something like 9:28, and they were watching the clock and seeing how many scenes they had to do. But I still do watch it, and I still do think it's really good. And it's not. I hardly ever watch anything. I don't watch my own documentary or something. By the time you've made something, you don't want to watch it for 10 years. But partly because we do these DVDs where you watch, where we watch Doctor Who and we commentate on it. I am amazed, given the circumstances we worked under, how good it is. It's amazing.
I watched Mordrin on Friday night, and I have plans to watch 2 episodes on Friday, and I watched the whole thing straight through, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. I just enjoyed it thoroughly.
I think there's an energy there, driven by the fact that you might not get a second take, and it really is that. There's just an energy there in the acting. And for some people, right, okay, this is a difficult one. You're interested in acting. But people used to say a lot of acting in Doctor Who was over the top, which means overacting, right? Well, there are 2 reasons. One, life is not about green slimy monsters chasing you down corridors. If it is, go and see your doctor. Right? But it isn't, right? Okay? So it's not reality. You're in a fantasy world. As an actor, you're taught to work with emotion and deal with the person who you're with and feed on their emotion. That actually is incredibly easy. That's a lot easier than working with a green slimy monster chasing you down a corridor, because there's 2 guys in there and they can't actually move if they're in the murder, and they can only go like that because the costume's so heavy they can't even chase you. So you've got to pretend they're chasing you, and it does become it's a dramatised comic strip. But if you don't in your heart feel you're going to die and you're really being chased by a death-defying green slimy monster, you will look rubbish. Because that's what acting is about. It's about putting yourself in the situation. But partly because in those days, and always, Doctor Who is such a fantasy, and situations are so extreme, people often think in science fiction that people overact. They don't. You take those actors into something else and they're completely normal. Because life isn't about green slimy monsters chasing you down corridors. It's about having a relationship. So I went from Angels, where I had a girlfriend called Alison, and we'd have conversations like, oh, here there's a new wine bar open downtown. You don't fancy going for a coffee tonight, do you? Yeah. To Doctor Who, where I've got to go, ah! It's not overacting. it's a different thing. And the fantasy of Doctor Who was extraordinary. But it's the same now. Any of you seen that film about the Trojan? 500? What's it called?
300.
300. It's a fantastic film. How many of you seen 300? Yeah, it's brilliant. I went to see about monkeys based on the same graphics called Dark Days in Monkey City for Animal Planet bombed. But it was a good try. It cost them a fortune. They just a bomb on it, millions. But it was the same thing. It was blue screening monkeys. And they were tribes, warring tribes. So it was all done blue screen, okay? Now what blue screen means is that there's nothing there. So you're just acting in front of a blue or green screen. Then they add everything else on. Okay? But it was even more primitive when I was in Doctor Who, in a sense, because we sort of had these primitive, it was sort of blue screening, but they'd paint the floor blue. So when I'm being sucked in
Frontios?
No, Enlightenment. When I'm being sucked out of the plane. No, that's why I'm throwing myself. Well, yes, that probably is in.
With the Tractators?
Yeah, it is Tractators,
yeah.
All they did was draw a chalk circle on the ground. And that was it. And the production manager said, OK, scene 26B, Mark, this is where you lie on the floor in the circle and you scream Tractators, 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 and you foam at the mouth. And you're being sucked out into space. OK, so this is a big problem for an actor. Because there's nothing to work with, right? It really is a huge problem, okay? I think acting in science fiction is the most difficult acting in the world. So I now have to just lie on the ground and I'll do it because and then I'll explain what it proves about being a good actor and why I was a shitty actor for years, right? But I'll do it first. And it's perfectly simple. You just lie on the ground like that, and there's a circle there, and you get in your head and you think, right, it's going to take about 5 seconds. I'm being sucked out of a spaceship and I'm having a nightmare about Tractators, right? Tractators! 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 Okay, so, you know. For a minute, you're there. And if it isn't real for you, you've had it because you're going to look like shite. Right? But...
Is it all right to sit down?
Yeah, it's all right. Why I was a really bad actor for a while was because I had a normal middle-class upbringing in the UK. And I don't know how you teach people acting, but the one thing you mustn't have as an actor is any sort of limits. You must give yourself into the emotion of the moment and the emotion of the person you're working with, or in a case like that, just an emotion. And it has to be real. And if it isn't, it looks naff. As an actor, I can sort of spot it a mile off in films when actors aren't really acting. They're not in the moment. It amazes me that audiences can't, because there are really famous actors who I think are absolutely rubbish and can't act their way out of the paper bag. And I'm not about to give their names, but they've won Oscars and all sorts of things. You know, but it amazes me that people can't see the difference between those actors and actors who are really in the moment. The other actors, they tend to give the same performance all the time, and they're not really there. And yet people love them. So I can't explain it, it's a magic. And then there are those wonderful actors who are totally in the moment, which is just they're really awesome.
Because I know we're running short on time, you used to do a lot of conventions.
Yes.
We've done...
No, I didn't actually. I've never done
Oh, you used to say that when you were doing them every 2 weeks.
Well, that was because I was in the programme and I had to.
We did a few years ago, and we did one. I don't know whether people are aware of this. There was once a convention in 1987 where we went from Harwich to the Hook of Holland on a Sea Link ferry. And we were just talking about this. Was it one of the more surreal you've ever done?
It was extremely surreal. So, you know, when you go to a Doctor Who convention, you expect most people there to want to see you. But if you get on a ferry, which some idiot organises...
Hello!
Hello! Sorry. And you go into the bar and the disco, which is a public area, and you're trying to do a Doctor Who convention in one bit, and only about a third of the people on the ferry want to see anything to do with Doctor Who, and all the others are just interested in, you know, in a booze cruise, going to Amsterdam and getting drugged up. I mean, you are on a hiding to nowhere, aren't you? Yeah, it's not going to work. Well, we eventually threw in the towel, didn't we? And we thought, well, we might as well join everybody else and just go on the booze cruise.
We got so drunk that night, didn't we? It was surprisingly, that was the only time it's ever been done in this country. I can't imagine
why you have endless Doctor Who conventions on the booze cruise to Amsterdam. No, I can't imagine it. No. Fill in the questionnaire.